Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the recap of Catalunya, Brugge-De Panne and Coppi Bartoli. But before that, we will start with Tadej Pogačar's announcement. Well, kind of curious announcement. It was a UAE Team Emirates email this morning. The email this morning, which I received in my inbox. Let me have a look. Let me have a look, Benji, what the email was. I might as well read it.
I want to see the email. Tell me, buddy. It was an important email, right?
Well,
was it just a daily newsletter?
No, I don't know. I can't find it. Oh, it's been filtered into. Yeah, I got it. UAE Team Emirates announce teams for E3 and Gent-Wevelgem. I was like, okay, fair enough. Kind of buried the lead. Within that, at the bottom, there's one liner. It was initially planned for Tadej Pogačar to participate in both the E3 Classic and Gent-Wevelgem. However, after discussions with the team, it has been decided that he will adjust his calendar to focus on the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix instead, aiming for peak form in those iconic races. What's your first reaction, Benji?
Well, first reaction is, why is it buried deep into a newsletter? As in, they announced the start list for Gent-Wevelgem and E3, of course, in that email. So as a consequence, they need to explain why Pogačar is suddenly not on the start list. But why don't you hype it up more? Pogačar starting Roubaix has been something that has been discussed for the last 2.5 years in cycling. Remember, was it last year or the year before where there was a picture of Pogačar at Truidarenberg and people were trying to figure out, is this a real picture? Does this mean he's going to ride Roubaix? Did he just recon it for fun? Turns out he wasn't going to ride Roubaix that year. We had that same kind of vibe this year where he went with Wellens early in the season. And at the end of the day, it kind of half died down the rumor for a little bit, but then Gazeta kept memeing about it, talking about it, yapping about it left and right. We heard some rumors about it. And now it turns out that he will indeed go to Paris-Roubaix. Come on, guys. Do a big reveal. Don't put it at the bottom of an email, but reaction on the actual news itself. First of all, it changes the dynamic of E3 and Gent-Wevelgem. But I think the most important aspect is that Pogačar will be at the start of Roubaix. A world champion GC rider will be at the start of Roubaix. That is something that in my lifetime I have not necessarily experienced. And I've spoken about this a couple of times in the last couple of years. The reason that I was such an advocate of moving Paris-Roubaix to the end of the year, somewhere around October, is that a lot of GC riders would never in their entire life think about doing Paris-Roubaix, even if they were fitting towards the parkour. For example, Remco Evenepoel is not thinking about doing a Paris-Roubaix right now in his run-up towards the Tour de France, because the Tour de France is way more important, because for others, the Giro is way more important. So they don't want to take risks before Grand Tours, and that's still an element here. So there is an element of risk-taking here by Pogačar. He is taking a risk by doing Roubaix before the Tour de France. I know there's always going to be comments like, yeah, but cycling is a dangerous sport anyway. Riding Paris-Roubaix is different than doing a couple of asphalt sprint races, unless they're in the Panne.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, is it so dangerous? Is Paris-Roubaix more dangerous than Gent-Wevelgem or E3? I don't know. I haven't got the data.
Yes.
Maybe. I guess if you crash in Arenberg, I would say the risk, or on the cobbles, like the bad cobble sections, the risk if you go straight down of serious injury is higher, because if you hit, like we with the Fred Wright crash in the Arenberg, if you hit and your wheel breaks, you basically just go straight over the bars and spear your arm or shoulder into a really horrible, massive cobble. They're not like normal cobbles or pave, and you're going to break something. So it is dangerous. That's maybe why they... Did he take out E3 and Gent-Wevelgem, Benji, to maintain good shape because he has to do the Ardennes afterwards? Or is that to give Vermeersch and Pollitt chances to go for their own result?
I think it might be a bit of everything. I think there's an effect of Pogačar wanting to ride Roubaix. I don't think Machin and Gianetti came out of their bed at the start of the season at the end of last year and said, we want Pogačar to do Roubaix. I think it's Pogačar that came to the forefront and said, I'd like to do Roubaix at some point. And I feel like Pogačar wants to do Roubaix. In my opinion, the team management probably was a bit more doubtful about that decision because the Tour de France is so much more important for a team like UAE Team Emirates. So they don't want him to have injuries going towards the Tour de France again. 2 years ago.
Yeah,
2 years ago,
Liège,
yes.
that's on Liège. But I agree. This is why the announcement's taken so long. I don't know if Pogačar had to call in the reinforcements and get Matar. I think maybe he has to get Matar and say, I want to do Roubaix, because very, very clearly Gianetti did not want him to do Roubaix.
For the people that don't know, who's Matar?
He's like the Matar Suhel Yabhuni Al-Dahiri is the president of the team. So he's above Gianetti in the structure.
Yeah.
So it's like Gianetti... Matar Suhel Al-Yabuni, Gianetti.
Don't do the entire name again.
Machin, and then Pogačar kind of is also in his own hierarchy. So
yeah, but
clearly Gianetti, because we saw in interviews, even after Strade, Gianetti was like, you can see the danger of these one-day races. And then Pogačar, when asked about it, refused to rule it out. He's like, I don't know, maybe it's still on the table. So clearly he wants to do it. I mean, credit to him. It's going to be very exciting to have a Tour de France winner, reigning Tour de France champion and reigning world champion doing Paris-Roubaix is going to be very exciting.
Yes.
And it's cool for the race. Also because, it just adds another element to the race. You have Van der Poel, Van Aert, and Pogačar going against each other again after Flanders, hopefully.
And like, we saw Milano Sanremo, he was not the favorite for that race. Mathieu van der Poel was the favorite for that race. Some people, and I think the betting favorites, also considered Pogačar the favorite for MSR, which I didn't necessarily agree with. When it comes to Paris-Roubaix, is there also a factor? I believe in this, by the way. I think Pogačar arriving at Roubaix automatically puts him in a co-favorite role for many people and for other riders. So despite me not necessarily believing that he's going to show up for Roubaix the first time around and win Roubaix, I don't believe in that right now. I think he's going to be an element in the race that needs to be considered, 100%. He can fight for in Belgium we call it an Ereplaats, a close position in the results. But at the end of the day, against the bigger guys, Mathieu van der Poel, even Wout van Aert for Roubaix, I'd put above Pogačar right now. But my question is, does it not hinder him that he's seen as a favorite despite not being it?
That's the problem. So he has to win solo, right?
Yeah.
He has to win solo. And it's a flat race. I don't know. I know there's some hills in it, but in case people don't know, Paris-Roubaix is a flat race. And there could be huge units chasing him, where it's a lot different to the people chasing you after the last Rochefoucauld, where, it ain't happening. There's hilly terrain where there's no one as fast as him on hilly terrain, or after Sormano in Lombardia. So that's if you have a big group of units, I mean, collaborating, it's going to be tricky for him. I think this is bad for Van der Poel, actually.
Okay.
I think because it just adds like an extra element to control of someone. You can't just think, I'll drop a bomb next cobble sector and I'll catch him later. You can't treat Pogačar that way.
Because if we take a look at E3, it's slightly differently. On Paris-Roubaix, I agree that it's an extra factor that Alpecin and Mathieu van der Poel need to take care of, because I see no way that UAE helps them control the race at Roubaix, because they shouldn't do that in a position like that. Meanwhile, at E3, if Pogačar showed up at E3 instead of Roubaix, which was his original plan, I would have seen that race as their teams are kind of allies to control the race. Because Alpecin and UAE both want to make sure no anticipation moves go up the road, and that it's some kind of 1v1 between Mathieu van der Poel and Pogačar, where Pogačar hopes he can drop Van der Poel, and Van der Poel hopes he can stay with Pogačar and maybe drop him, maybe beat him in a sprint. So they feel like natural allies in a race like E3, while they are not in Paris-Roubaix, right?
Yeah, I agree, because Pogačar's like happy to work because he's got a hill where he can try to drop you later. Van der Poel's happy to work because he's like, if I survive with you, then it's a 2-up sprint. I'm going to take those odds to survive and then win the sprint. I mean, the thing with Pogačar and Roubaix, I remember there was an interview with his DS Baldato, I think, well, not his DS at the moment, but at De Panne or Catalunya, the Italian DS, and he said, he was asked, how can a 65 kilo rider compete in Roubaix? And he's like, well, the tires and the bikes are so much more compliant. And it's true, I know. Chris Miller and Jesse won't like me saying it, but probably compared to 25 years ago, compared to the bike Magnus Backstedt rode, I would say the frames are more compliant now and the seat posts are more comfortable and the tires are bigger, the pressures are lower, and so a smaller rider has more chance in Roubaix. And then you think about just the raw numbers. Okay, there's no hills, so watts per kilo is out.
Yeah.
Raw numbers, Pogačar's threshold is probably the same as Van der Poel in absolute terms. Like, what's Pogačar's threshold? 65 kilos times... Yeah, it's like 430 probably. 430, 440. I mean, I doubt Van der Poel's threshold is less than or more than... Yeah. So, if they actually even get into a... Pardon?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, if they get into like a chasing battle on the flat, there's not actually a huge advantage for Van der Poel because actually he can't push that much more than Pogačar over, I would say, an hour period.
But I do think there's an inherent advantage on the cobbles where Van der Poel has more technique, more experience. Like we spoke about this a week and a half ago on our weekly show. We spoke about Mathieu van der Poel being Neo from the Matrix, seeing a cobble and imprinting that in his mind, and the AI robot in his head knows how to attack that cobble in a way where he can't puncture. There's also just a smoothness in the way that he rides over the cobbles that I don't necessarily see in many other riders, where I see a difference there. And yes, Pogačar was very good in that cobble stage at the Tour de France, but that's not against Van der Poel and the Wout van Aerts and the world and so forth for the victory in Roubaix. And I think that's something different. I believe that Pogačar can compete. I don't think he can win this year.
It's going to be tricky for him. I think he needs to get into like a Van Baarle situation, actually. I think that's how he wins. But, I mean, they got Bjerg Pollitt as well. It is strange he doesn't do one of E3 Gent-Wevelgem. That's probably just load management because if he's having to do an Ardennes campaign afterwards. But yeah, it's exciting. It's actually, to me, it's more exciting. I would rather he does Roubaix as a fan than E3, for example. Like E3, Flanders, we see it in Flanders, let's just see it there, and then let's see it in Roubaix. So I think I don't know, what do you think? Like, you think he can you think he'll podium?
I think a podium is possible, yeah.
Yeah.
But
okay.
There's also just a chance that something happens along the way where he gets into a position because of experience that he's not as competitive as a consequence of that. So I do think riding Roubaix multiple times helps. Hot take.
Exactly. I mean, this is another. So you need your shoulder. It's Roubaix flat. You need your shoulder to ride a bike. Third thing is, to win a race, you have to do it. So you have to start the race to win it. It's really... and all jokes aside, that's been the problem with Van Aert. You look at his monument tally of podiums. Well, he hasn't done Flanders in 2022 or 2024. Didn't do Sanremo the last 2 years. So you got to be in it to win it. And Roubaix shit happens, punctures, splits, crosswinds, whatever, bad luck, just not on the day. You got to increase your odds. That's why probably Pogačar's going to do it. Pogačar's like, I got what? Let's say he's got 5 years at this level, which is a big assumption, 5 years at this level. But yeah, you got to do it the next 5 years then to win it once, probably.
Fully agree. And that's also the case with where Sanremo, you also want to do it as many times as possible because there's more, perhaps a little bit of luck involved. But this year was less luck than just pure, there was strength in the race and Mathieu van der Poel ended up being better that day. But I do want to pull it a little bit away from the discussion of Paris-Roubaix for a second and pull it back towards E3 Gent-Wevelgem. We did a preview in the weekly show. That weekly show preview is kind of half dead because Pogačar is not present in these races. How does that change our feeling about it? Because like I said, I felt like UAE and Alpecin were teammates in controlling E3. I feel like Pogačar was going to blow up Gent-Wevelgem, which is now not going to be the case, which means that it's even more likely to become a sprint with so many teams, including Alpecin, having Philipsen as a sprinter, for example, having a sprinter there. Then when it comes to E3, Mathieu van der Poel is still favored for me. I do think, I haven't seen the confirmed start list of Alpecin, but the preliminary one, my God. Tobias Bayer, Xander Meurice, Yuri Holland, Prise Peidersen, Samuel Geis, and Oscar Rizebeek. That's not going to control E3. But then again, it opens up from the Tyenberg E3. So how early is Mathieu van der Poel willing to go? Is he going to be willing to wait and risk not being part of the battle if Tarling goes up the road? If like an anticipation move goes up the road and his team can't control it, what then?
It's a good point, Benji, because with Pogačar there, it just sets the race for Van der Poel. Basically, he knows Pogačar going to drop a nuke. His job's to survive it. Hope Van Aert are dropped. Win sprint. Very simple race plan. And UAE helped them control it. Now, he doesn't want to have a sprint against Van Aert or pick, is Binny here? Where is Binny? Binny's here. Yeah, he doesn't want to sprint against Binny or Van Aert or Jordi Meus. He's not surviving what I'm talking about. But you know what I mean. So he wants to be solo, or Mads Pedersen, for example. I think one of the strongest teams is Little Trek. So like it's Little Trek and Visma have the deepest teams now. And so what do Visma do with Jorgensen? Do they try to work Van der Poel? Because the problem is when you have Pogačar there and you try to work Van der Poel, Pogačar just jumps with Jorgensen or follows, and then you got a problem. So
the problem with Mathieu van der Poel is that, hypothetically, let's do a hypothetical situation in the air here. We've got Tyenberg arrives. We've got the run-up to the Tyenberg, through the Kortkeer, vroom, the peloton goes vibrant. A split happens on the Tyenberg. That's a beautiful noise, by the way. Do it again. I want to hear it. Oh, the passion in that. Anyway, on the Tyenberg, split occurs. We've got most likely multiple riders of Visma Lease bike. Van der Poel's probably going to be there. Out of that team of Alpecin, I'm sorry, but maybe Roubaix if it's a relatively sizable group. If it's a sizable group.
Yeah, I don't want to count them out. I mean, they were so good in the Molenberg, but that was Groves, Vermeersch, Kielich, maybe, or Edward Plankert. Maybe. Like, Edward Plankert's cracked, by the way. He's so good. Edward Plankert, he can climb. Like, really, he can really climb.
Mate, you don't know the whole story. I don't even know if Edward Plankert is related to this, but in Belgium, there's like this celebrity family called the Plankarts, and like the elderly ones from the family. I'm calling them elderly. They're like the dads or the grandpas from the family. They were cyclists back in the day. They won actual cycling races, and they had like this recurring TV show on TV, the Plankarts, where you like follow their lives. I don't know if Edward was part of that family or is completely unrelated to that, but there's definitely one Plankart that was in the peloton at some point. But I just wanted to tell you that story. Completely
Baptiste Plankart.
Baptiste, yes. I
Wait,
think yes.
So your reality TV show in Flanders version of Keeping Up with the Kardashians was Keeping Up with the Plankarts, who won the GP Oettinger Morne van Niekerk in 1965.
Yes. That, and there was another one, the Pfaffs, which was like the goalkeeper from the Belgian football national team in like in the World Championship of Mexico, where they did very well back in the day before the 2000s. So we've got the football one, and we've got the cycling one.
Culture. I learn something new every day.
E3 sounds better than the Kardashians. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think there's going to be just an open race from the Tyenberg, and a lot of riders are going to anticipate. I think Van der Poel's going to hope that all of Visma, Bora, Trek, UAE cannibalize each other. The race progresses like last year. Little Trek chased Jorgensen and Lascano before the Paderberg, and then on the Paderberg he drops the hammer and the race is over. I think that's what his plan will be. The problem is he doesn't have a certain Kraj Andersen here who basically neutralized the race for 20 kilometers in that phase. So that is the gap I see in their team for E3 now. Gen Wevelgem, as you said, hope the sprinters like Merlier are okay after the crashes today, but that will be a sprint unless there's crazy. I think there is crazy crosswinds predicted, so that'd be exciting too, I guess. Okay, on to Volta Catalunya. We had a 5,000 meter elevation gain stage, extremely long, finishing on La Molina, 6-hour stage, 220 kilometers long, beginning at the Vila de Cans, the style outlets where my wife goes in Barcelona, and legit, I think that's the place. Let me check. Style outlet.
I'm waiting for your geographical experience.
That's where she goes. It started there. I'm surprised she wasn't at the start, actually, frankly. And it finishes on La Molina as they go all the way north, basically in a straight line on my drive home to finish on the La Molina, where the ski station is near Puigcerdà. And it's just uphill the whole way, 5,000 meters climbing. Easy climbs, though. La Col de la Croita is 20 k's, 5% an hour uphill descent, and then Molina is about 8 k's, 7%. Then it's easier, then it's a descent, then it's a punch of about a k at 5%, but there's steeper parts in there. Tricky finish with a left-hand hairpin at 150 to go. Got to time your sprint right. Rarely big gaps here, frankly. In the first two stages, we had Matthew Brennan win a sprint when Albertson played the Nick Schultz tactic really, really well. Thibaut Del Grosso, who's a really good bike handler, just gapped everyone on the descent, including his teammates. They waited a bit too long, maybe to give him to tell him to go full throttle. Brennan bridged back with Groves in the wheel, won the sprint, which is pretty good, I guess, Benji.
Yeah, it was a fantastic stage. Just to see Matthew Brennan, who we saw him do some stuff this season already. Won GP Denain, got a podium victory. No, a podium victory, that doesn't exist. A podium result in Tour Down Under as well, I'm pretty sure, at the start of the season. So multiple results are already in the run-up, but to then show up to a Volta race and deliver not just a victory, but a victory in such a magical prowess where he was not close to Thibaut Del Grosso. Yes, Del Grosso was having shit legs at that point in the race because he went all out on the climb before to control stuff, but it's still a crazy win in my opinion. So absolutely love that. When it comes to stage 2, was just a generic sprint in the end, right? Between Groves, between Vernon and so forth. But Groves also received the yellow card for a shoulder bump or something in the last 11 kilometers. I don't know the exact kilometer anymore in stage 2. And I'll get back to this later because it's important for another discussion I'm going to have later, because I feel like I'm about to go off in this podcast at some point. But Groves got a yellow card there. 20 seconds later, another rider from Israel does exactly the same thing to him, and they get no yellow card. So that's already complete inconsistency by the UCI. But when it comes to the actual finish, who wins the race?
Vernon comes with speed from the back, and then has a track-style sprint sitting down at the end. Brennan took too long to decide whether to go right or left. Eventually has to open left, and he loses by a quarter of a wheel for a second stage win in a row. So Vernon, I mean, he's got 5 World Tour stage wins on his CV now, I think.
Patrick!
Picking the right races.
Patrick, I got to pause you for a second. There's a third celebrity family show in Belgium. We've got this kid show with a guy and a doll dog. It's a weird situation. And their family also has a Kardashian-style show. I just want to get you up to date here.
But like, it's a bit that he has the dog. It's part of the show, or he really has it. Like, they're like, here's this man, possible issues with this, and he walks around with a puppet dog all day.
So the guy is Hert.
His name's Tom Bonen.
And he's got a puppet dog in the show, Samson and Gert. Now, outside of that, he's like one of the richer people in Belgium, has like theme parks and so forth. I don't think he has an actual puppet dog, but to be honest, it wouldn't shock me if he does.
Yeah, but that's not a reality show. This is just a kid's show.
No, but that's the kid's show. But they also have a reality show, or had a reality show in the last couple of years from his family then later on in life.
Understood. Okay, well.
He launched the careers of his kid, Nepo babies.
Okay. And you also have Tintin.
Yes, but that's not a reality show yet.
Yeah, I liked Tintin as a kid.
Yeah,
okay.
You look like him every now and then.
I do indeed. Yes, traveling the world.
He's a bit taller.
He's Vernon wins, Brennan second. Stage 3, as I said, big mountain showdown, except that you don't never expect any gaps here because the gradients are too little. And Bruno Armirel went in the breakaway. Big truck. Bruno Armirel, he's one of those guys, Benji, if he goes to hospital, gets put on, has a general anesthetic for a collarbone, gets it fixed, wakes up, he's got the heart rate stuff on him. He's the one that sets off the sensors because they think he's dead because his resting heart rate's probably 22. Like, that's who Bruno Armirel is. And he just drops the guys in the breakaway and starts to do a solo training ride. Really, really strong. UAE were chasing all day with Sivakov, Novak on this parkour. Torres pulled as well, the young Spaniard on their team.
Yeah.
So they were keen on. Ayuso was confident. And we get to nothing happens basically. They catch him on the final climb. Torres pulls. Soler starts pulling. And then I feel like UAE played this the wrong way, Benji. Even though they get a good result here. In the Bora are thin here. They're thin with their domestiques. They just have Pellizzari and basically no other uphill support for Roglic. They've got Adam Yates, who's not really, he's close enough on GC. And then, I feel like Yates should have been jumping when the other jumps happened rather than closing it. Because that's, like, Pellizzari was not closing these moves down himself.
So, for example, one of the first moves was Kuzen O'Connor going up the road, and it was Yates pulling behind instead of following that move, for example. And then later, Bennett Fortunato went up the road.
Much later, yeah. They let Pellizzari pace for quite a while.
True. But then Soler jumped towards it after Yates was done pulling. That
was really good. So, and then you saw with UA, wow, like Bora can't control this situation. But then it was a bit late because the last couple of Ks of La Molina really level out. So yeah, it's Pellizzari did the best he could. He's just trying to bring Roglic to a sprint here, basically, and Kuss bridges across before the top. So you got three guys, Bennett's drop, you got Soler, Fortunato, Kuss. They start working. They get to the final kicker after the descent. EF have been pulling with Cepeda for Carapaz.
Yes.
Riccicello tried to attack when Bennett had got dropped for Israel. So other teams are helping, but it's close to finish. We see Felix Gull. He paces, and Roglic is in the wheel. So this is a good situation for Roglic. Soler and Kuss are brought back. It's closed down. We got the last 500 meters. Soler starts to do a lead out for Ayuso. Roglic jumps them at 300 into the left-hand hairpin. Ayuso, so he had to go the long way around Soler because Soler thought he was on his other side, but he gets to Roglic's wheel just before the corner. Roglic, it looks like a Roglic stomp. He goes through the hairpin, leaves the gap open to his right side to the barrier, stops sprinting, is in the hoods, looks over his right shoulder, sees Ayuso's there. Ayuso just squeezes through, opens his sprint, gets the inside. It then bends sharply to the right again. It's way quicker to the right-hand side. And through that right-hand bend, Ayuso obviously is opening up on Roglic to make Roglic go even wider around him. And Roglic misses out. He doesn't win the sprint. I really think he was the strongest, maybe. Or yeah, yes. I think he was the strongest. I think Roglic was the strongest in this sprint, but he fucked it up completely. And Ayuso was smarter, got timed it better, and just holds on to win a nail-biter photo finish, preview of the Giro maybe, ahead of Roglic. And that takes another stage. He's won 5 races so far this year in 13 race days. And in GC, he's 6 seconds ahead of Roglic. Landa was third on 2 seconds. Great sprint from your boy. Martinez fourth. Good punch, Lenny. Van Aertvelt fifth. Enric Mas, Bernal, Harold Martin, Lopez, Carapaz, Simon Yates, Adam Yates, Kuss. A whole lot of other guys within 4 seconds, don't care. GC-wise, Ayuso 6 seconds ahead of Roglic because of some other bonies that he took at intermediate sprints. Yeah.
Good finish. Like, we want to see Ayuso fight Roglic for the Giro. We see that on this stage. We see that in a very close manner where Ayuso won the stage, but I believe Roglic could have won the stage if he played it better. Now, he fucked up the final a little bit, but is it me or is there also a factor of Roglic not necessarily being the best bike handler and as a consequence in that final corner that we're speaking about, not taking the wide corner because he's like, oh, Ayuso is next to me, I don't want to risk anything. Then he looks to the right, then he gets panicky. I think there's a bit in the head there as well.
When you watch how Remco won the Aronsal sprint or how Remco did this sprint, I think I need to look it up. Remco La Molina. But it's not dirty. If a guy's behind you and you're going through a hairpin and you take the apex, you are allowed to reestablish your line by going to the barrier, but you've got to do it straight away. You can't come out of the corner, leave a gap, open it up, and then decide to close the guy. You have to out of the corner, but you can go the barrier. And if Roglic does that, gets into the drops, opens up, he wins. Maybe he didn't expect Ayuso to be there, but yeah, it was strange.
I've got a feeling that might be the factor there. I don't think he thinks Ayuso was going to be there, but at the end of the day, he wasn't. The result is that Ayuso wins, and this doesn't mean much for the rest of the week yet for me, because it wasn't actually as hard of a stage as I expected it to be when it comes to the pacing. Maybe I expected UAE to maybe hammer it a little more on the climb before the Crueta climb, because Sivakov did pace in the last portion of it, but there was a moment where Lotto was setting the tempo at the front, you know. So I don't know. Maybe that's why I expected a little more, and also they also saved Narvaez, because on the last climb Narvaez was sitting in 6th position trying to survive to the finish line.
Wait, no way Narvaez is here.
Yes, he is, right? No, wait. Am I? No, I'm wrong.
Nah, he's sick.
No. I saw Bernal and I thought Narvaez, the jersey. It's obviously Bernal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
I think basically Soler didn't pull all out. So Soler went for his own chance, and I think
which
probably
is fine. But
I mean, is it?
Like,
Roglic is only 6 seconds behind on GC with some very Roglic-y stages coming.
Is it going for his own chances, or is it
100%.
reverse lead out?
Yeah, it did. For sure, it put pressure on Pellizzari, but in the end, it's not going to be huge gaps. And it's not like Roglic is never going to chase him himself. You're never going to actually put... Roglic is just going to be like, okay, it's Mark Soler, it's not my problem. And someone else will close it. So, yeah, probably what you want is as hard a climb as possible for Ayuso based on his shape in Tirreno and based on Roglic's history. So, I think it worked out well for Roglic, and he should have won. Roglic should have won the stage. So,
100%.
And he'd be leading GC if he had.
Are there super hard stages coming this week where UAE can make it super hard?
Tomorrow's stage is a very Roglic, 188 Ks, some little medium mountains or hills beforehand from Manresa to Montserrat, and it's an 8.8 K, 6.6% climb, very consistent with a 5% finish. And, I mean, looks Roglic to me. Not that Ayuso can't win it, but I think Ayuso could have maybe taken, because Remco took time on this stage in 23. Then we have a sprint. Then we have a steep uphill finish to Keralt, which is still 6Ks, 7%. Pretty Roglic-y to me. And then the Barcelona. So it's very finely balanced, but either one can win it on bonus seconds. I would say Ayuso's general level is probably better, but I
would love to see the race completely explode on the Col de Pradelle in the middle of stage 6.
I mean, if you're UAE, don't you do that?
Last 5.5K, 10.9%. I'm sorry, but holy shit.
What are Bora going to do?
Exactly. I like the idea of it.
Adam Richards is still in GC. Soler's still in GC.
I'm sorry, but even considering the next 30 kilometers is downhill, even if Ayuso goes on Col de Pradelle, it's a 34-kilometer race after the descent. That's not a deadly solo, worst case, eh? Or a deadly 1v1 versus Roglic, eh?
No, but Pogačar went on the penultimate climb on this stage last year. Mikel Landa looks dangerous, so let's respect Mikel Landa. But he is going to come third on GC and not trouble the scorers, I would dare say. So Catalunya looks good for a contest between the Giro hopefuls. And maybe we'll see Roglic fight back tomorrow on a finish that indeed suits him very, very well and is probably better for his team overall here. Although I don't know why Lipovic, Vlasov, Van Gils, Hindley, Martinez couldn't spare the time to be here. But
the Itzuya team is on paper preliminary. Every single third tier GC rider Bora signed. And Lipovic.
It can't be right.
Because Lipovic is better than the rest, in my opinion, GC-wise.
Yeah. Lipovic, Martinez, Adria, Pellizzari, Fischer, Black, Vlasov, Van Gils. If one of them gets the jersey, don't know who's controlling.
They're attacking each other in the breakaway.
The last race today was Brugge-De Panne. This was a shit show, which is normally the case when there isn't any wind, which unfortunately there wasn't. So it's basically an absolutely full peloton, and then the race really narrows into the finish. And yeah, don't watch the last 5Ks of this race. I could barely watch. We knew it was coming. I was like, I knew it was coming. I was just crossing my fingers no one was going to get seriously hurt. And this race is just marred by crashes. There's a huge one with Crawfordis, then DeLee, then Coy gets taken out with Merlier.
Philipsen.
Was Philipsen? Was he there as well?
He was hindered by it at least. I don't know if he hit the ground.
And this is a K to go, so if you lose the wheel, it's over. And basically, it came to a group of 15 coming into the sprint. Juan Sebastian Milano, very smart, launched at 400. There was no other lead-outs to close. Milan hesitated, and he's not able to catch up to Milano, who wins Brugge-De Panne ahead of Milan, Mikkels third, Bauhaus fourth, Blicker fifth, Canter, Renard, Rex, Groenewegen.
I don't care.
Well, yeah, I also don't care.
But I want to talk about this because we've got these 4 crashes happening in this sprint. There's riders making mistakes left and right. That's possible. Like a rider that maybe goes a bit to the left, reacts too severely to the right, expects something to happen, maybe a squeeze, then brakes a bit too much, then a crash just happens as a consequence of all these things combined. There's so many riders that make small mistakes here. That's normal. That's super normal. But then there's the extreme things. X rider gives a push with his left shoulder or elbow, combination of both maybe, towards Jonathan Milan, and he gives back one of the biggest headbutts I've seen in the sport of cycling. I cannot exaggerate with this scenario. And I'll be honest, rules-wise, put the yellow cards in the box. This is pure disqualification, and there is a rule for it. We have a rule in the rule book that if it's more severe, the action, than something that's worthy of a yellow card. For example, the rule is assault, intimidation, insult, threats, improper conduct, etc. That kind of stuff. Normally that's like yellow card, some fine. But at the bottom it says, in addition to the above provisions, in serious cases which Milan just headbutts Christoph in the middle of a peloton that's storming into the final few kilometers after multiple crashes have happened already, that is fucking ridiculous. And in cases of those serious cases, the commissaires panel may eliminate or disqualify a rider or exclude a license holder. So they can disqualify a rider as a consequence. You know what the decision is? I just read it on Sporza a few minutes ago, actually. The UCI has decided to give both riders a yellow card, and Jonathan Milan is not even relegated in this race because the action did not happen in the sprint. What the bullshit is this, my friend?
How many
Jonathan
weeks?
Milan should be out, plus in front of the disciplinary commission, talking about a suspension of a week or 2 weeks or more.
How many weeks? If Christoph wasn't as good a bike handler, how many weeks is Milan getting?
If it's Buhani, he's 3 months off the bike.
Yeah, bruh, this was out of control. And we can talk about the road narrowing, and we knew, Benji, next year, when teams have to do every World Tour race, you can't have this finish. If every World Tour team has to do this and the wind's not blowing, it's going to happen again. So I don't know what the UCI, the race organizers, are going to do about that because, some teams just won't send us. Ineos weren't here. It's too dangerous.
Also, the Panne, as a city, I'm sorry, but even I don't want to cycle there and I'm alone. There's rail tracks everywhere on half the roads in that city center. That is no place for a finish like this, to be honest.
And the crack during the middle of the road with 20 Ks to go is crazy. Just because it didn't happen in a sprint doesn't give riders a carte blanche to do what they want. Tony Martin and Luke Rowe got thrown out of the Tour de France for something that didn't happen during a sprint because it was unacceptable in 2018 or 19. So, 19. And so, it wasn't just Milan though, it was everybody. Everyone's just completely out of control in this finish. Plus it's dangerous. The road narrowing is crazy for a full peloton. Because it's in a Grand Tour de France flat sprint, half the peloton don't want to be there and are skinny boy climbers, right? And so you've taken out half the peloton. In De Panne, it's literally every team with their sprinter and a full train of guys who won't give an inch. It's 7 guys. And so it's a way bigger peloton of guys fighting. Also in a tiny road. So hopefully everyone's okay. Coy looked fine. He rolled over the line. Taco looked a bit banged up. DeLee crashed but looked okay. Merlier got up, but his right leg was very sore, so maybe just pinged his hip. So these guys could be able to convey him on Sunday, and we'll see. Hopefully they're all right. I don't think Merlier, Phillips, and Coy, it's not like a bad crash where Tour de France or Giro's affected. It just maybe affects their classics coming up. But still very, it was tough to watch. So yeah, kind of everyone to blame.
Race. Like, it's a combination of the route, it's a combination of the riders doing stuff. I do want the route to be analyzed and bettered, because with a whole peloton, this is crap. But at the end of the day, there's also riders that made mistakes here. And the Milan one is definitely one where I'm like, his move didn't cause a crash, but it could have taken out half the peloton. And we do not judge them based on the consequences. We base it on the actions. And that was so severe. He should have been disqualified fully and suspended, in my opinion.
Yeah, but UAE keep winning. So Milano, he doesn't win often, but he pops through once a year and takes a World Tour level win for UAE with no lead
People
out.
were talking about relegation for Milano.
I didn't see. There was so much stuff. I haven't rewatched it. You could probably literally relegate everybody. That's why when maybe I'm biased, of course, but when I saw the Ferrand-Prévot relegation in San Remo, I was like, that's a relegation, but Milan keeps his result. What are we doing here?
And on top of that, for me, the Groves one is the crazy one. Groves, less than a month ago in Kuurne, Brussels-Kuurne, he celebrates before the finish line. He doesn't actually endanger anyone, in my personal opinion.
He didn't. He shouldn't have got a yellow. He shouldn't have got a yellow.
No, he shouldn't have gotten the yellow card according to the rule. The UCI decides he endangered Milan, who was ahead of him when he celebrated. Like, are you stupid? And now, within a month, he gets a second yellow card. Maybe he should have gotten that yellow card, fair. But then someone else does the same, does not get that yellow card.
Brennan and Strong were doing the same thing to each other.
I agree. Like, it was a severe yellow. He's got 2 yellow cards in a month. If he gets another one in the next, the 6 days, he's gotten 2 stupid yellow. If he does what Del Toro did, if he wins a race and he's got a broken zip and he has to bow with his top completely visible, he gets a yellow card. He's out for doing 3 stupid things that should not even have gotten a yellow card to begin with. This is ridiculous. What is this sport doing?
Can you get yellow cards for tweets?
I probably would have gotten a lot then. I would have been suspended half a year.
Yeah. Anyway, that was De Panne. Bit crazy. We have, coming up, the last race that was on today. Yesterday, Caleb Ewan got his first victory for the Ineos Grenadiers in his first race day. They had a plan, and they sent him to Coppi Bartali. In Italy, it was a pancake flat sprint stage.
I'm not allowed to allow you to talk about it. Every single week, you ruin our weekly show by talking about the races that are not World Tour races in our daily recaps. And then we have to invent topics to talk about. The papal states, like, these topics should not be in the weekly show. They're fun. But I'd like to talk about the Coppi Bartali on Monday. I won't stop you, though, if you want. I won't stop you.
No. Caleb Ewan. He was there. But I'll reserve it. But yeah, coming up this week, we have E3, Gent-Wevelgem, Catalunya finishing, and that's the rest of the racing this week. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back on Friday with the recap of E3, and then on Sunday with Gent-Wevelgem. Till then, ciao, ciao.